Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Got a pretty interesting show for you here today. Hope you enjoy it. But before we do that, you know what time it is. If you haven't already here on YouTube, go ahead, make sure you click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell so you can be up to date whenever new content drops. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in the Format Podcast, do a little search. We should come up. If you enjoy the content, please make sure you get that thumbs up or give us that 5-star review, whatever your platform allows. And make sure you share this podcast with other people, friends you may have, acquaintances, whoever, people you hate, people you love, who want to hear sports talk and want to hear a different voice. All right. Finally, if you do those things, then you know what happens. It helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. All right, let's get right to it. Playoff Jimmy. Playoff Jimmy is really a thing. Who am I talking about when I say playoff Jimmy? If you're an NBA fan, you know that the Miami Heat eliminated the number one seed in the playoffs last night. Number one overall seed, best team in the league all year. The Milwaukee Bucks, 4-1 in a total shock to just about everybody. Playoff Jimmy, of course, is Jimmy Butler, who throughout this series had 35 points in game 1, 25 points in game 2, 30 points in game 3, 56 points in game 4, and 42 in the closeout game last night. Jimmy Butler is a problem. And you know why you got to love this guy? Like, there's no drama with Jimmy. All he does is come to work. And if you go back and you look at this guy's career, it's insane. From averaging 2.6 points a game as a rookie, which I believe was the same year Derrick Rose became the youngest MVP ever. Jimmy Butler played on that Bulls team. But you look at that, and then you see this past season averaging 23 a game for the Miami Heat. All Jimmy Butler has done is work. He's been to the finals before. He's butted heads with some teammates along the way, but a big part of that is he's one of those guys that if you aren't working as hard as he is or as hard as he thinks you should be working, then he doesn't have a whole lot of respect for that. And I respect that, because you just see over time the way he has pushed to try to make it happen. We know the story about him before he hit the league, and I'm not the guy that really does all the off-court stuff, but I'm going to mention it real quick just so you can kind of get the idea of what I'm talking about in terms of him working and doing whatever it takes to make it. This was a guy in Texas. He was homeless. He was, he stayed in his car. When he did his letter of intent to play for Marquette, he faxed it from his job. I believe it was at McDonald's. Yeah, that's how long ago that was, right? He faxed it. Anyway, he faxed it there. He goes, he plays for Marquette, makes himself into an NBA player. And then he makes the league, and as I mentioned, 2.6 points per game as a rookie, up to 23 points per game this past season. But it's not even that, right? So we know that Jimmy Butler is going to work, and that's one of his biggest things. He may not be the most physically gifted, but he's going to outwork most people that he's playing against. But again, now we get to the playoff Jimmy piece, and this is a guy we saw in the bubble. He went head-to-head with LeBron James in that series before the Lakers' superior talent kind of won out there. He had some absolutely incredible games in that playoff run, especially in the finals, where he had the 40-point triple-double, absolute masterpiece. 40 points, 13 assists, 11 rebounds, just an incredible game. You remember there was just, there's the photo or the video of him just being utterly exhausted after that game. Even in the closeout game of that series, he had 35, 11 and 12. So another triple double, but he just didn't have enough to get his team over the hump, or his team wasn't good enough, or LeBron was better, however you want to look at it. And in fairness, LeBron has been all-time great in closeout games, so I just want to mention that. I believe he's the greatest Game 7 performer in NBA history, not so much as the winning, but in terms of his individual performances in Game 7s, absolutely incredible. But real quick, if you're talking about that on the final stage, well, Michael Jordan can't even be in that discussion because he never saw a Game 7 in the finals. So that's another story. But the point I'm trying to make is Jimmy Butler is a guy who shows up to play when the lights are brightest, and it's really incredible. If I'm on Basketball Reference right now, and I'm just looking, just so I can have these numbers for you as we're talking about this, and you're just looking at how Jimmy Butler steps up in these huge moments, and it's absolutely incredible. Just this series alone, and now he's going to go on. Looks like he's going to have the Knicks up next. Yes, he's going to have the Knicks up next because the Knicks just finished their series, and unless Atlanta pulls off a miracle, it's going to be the Celtics and the Hawks on the other side. But Jimmy Butler's going to have the Knicks up next. Now he's also going to have his hands full because he's going to go against another elite team and another elite defensive coach in Coach Tom Thibodeau. So, Tibbs is going to be looking for ways to control him. But the question is, can you really do it? Because again, Jimmy Butler is a guy who shows up time and time again in the playoffs. This past series, he averaged 37.6 points per game. That's unusual. Last year in the playoffs against Miami, he averages 27.4. This is a guy who gets it done. In that bubble season, he averaged 22.2 points per game, but he came up huge in the finals. And that was, again, where the lights are the brightest, where there's the most cameras on you, where there's the most pressure, Jimmy Butler has consistently thrived. And it really is amazing to watch. He averages 25 points per game in the playoffs over his Miami Heat career. So what I thought was interesting is the 56-point performance in Game 4 of this Bucks series. That's the most by any Heat player in postseason history. So if he continues to do this, let's just say hypothetically, he takes the Heat all the way and they can pull off a championship, and he has some more of these incredible games along the way. You really start having to ask the question: where does he rank in Miami Heat postseason history in terms of their particular Mount Rushmore? I'm sure a lot of people would say LeBron is the best player in Miami Heat postseason history. I don't know if that's the case. You probably would argue Dwayne Wade, but he only had one title prior to LeBron's arrival, and LeBron's arrival along with Chris Bosh helped him to get two more. So, huge kudos there. But Dwayne Wade was the guy in Miami for nearly his entire career. So there may be something to that. But if Jimmy Butler can keep doing the things that he's done, we may have a legitimate discussion on our hands. A lot of times when people are entrenched in certain positions, and myself included. For instance, I believe wholeheartedly Hakeem Olajuwon is the best big man who ever played basketball. A lot of people call me crazy for that, but that's cool. It's my opinion. But yeah, I believe that it would take a lot to move me off of that stance. I'm sure that people who feel that Dwayne Wade is the best Miami Heat of all time and maybe the best Miami Heat postseason performer of all time, I'm sure it would take a lot to move them off that stance. Some people may feel it's LeBron. Some people may feel Alonzo Mourning has an argument there. I don't know about Glenn Rice. I don't think he did quite enough, but you get the point of what I'm saying in terms of really great Heat players in the postseason. But Jimmy Butler continues to make his name and he continues to dominate, and it really is incredible to see. And so I'm just so impressed with what he's done. And so I'm a guy that when it comes to these players, right, like I mentioned Giannis a lot in terms of building to what he became. Kobe's another one, 7.5 points per game as a rookie. Giannis, 6 points and change as a rookie. And these guys took themselves through hard work and effort and desire to be great into that completely different stratosphere of all-time great players. Now, Jimmy Butler, he's not in the stratosphere of all-time great players, but he is a guy that clearly can get it done for you. And again, there's something to be said for when the lights are brightest. Reggie Miller is one of those guys. No one's going to consider him an all-time great player. I think he was only an all-star 5 times. I think he made third team All-NBA at shooting guard a couple of times. But there's a reason for that, because, you had guys like Mitch Richmond, Clyde Drexler, of course, Michael Jordan for the vast majority of his career. So it's going to be hard for him to get those positions. But then you look back and you think, right, everybody remembers Reggie Miller in the playoffs, bright lights, Madison Square Garden against Michael Jordan, all these incredible moments that he had, all these incredible shots that he made. And so maybe that stuff elevates his reputation historically higher than it should be. And we may end up, thinking about Jimmy Butler in that vein. It's very possible. So what I want to know from you today is where do you place Jimmy Butler on the all-time Miami Heat playoff performer list? Do you think the name Playoff Jimmy is really viable? Do you think it's legitimate or just some, tricky media creation? And do you think that the Miami Heat have a chance to beat the Knicks? All right. Leave your comments here in the comments section. Look forward to hearing from you. And I'm out. Peace.